All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to another expert session number 124. So first and foremost, I need to thank Acclaim AI, a voice-first, goal-oriented AI platform built for highly regulated industries like banking, fintech, healthcare, and insurance, where most conversational AI forces a choice between a slow human call centers and unpredictable AI agents. Acclaim gives enterprises autonomous voice agents with built-in compliance guardrails and full data ownership. So scale doesn't come at the cost of control. Thank you to the Acclaim team for supporting this session. And what is Evolve? For anyone joining us for the first time, Evolve is a global private network connecting senior operators, founders, advisors, investors, and growth companies across 50 plus markets. These sessions are practical, not theoretical, real operating experience from people who built, sold, governed, and advised. So not just talked about it. Roberto, I always start our sessions with a controversial question, but of course I need to start with your executive summary. So let's go. Roberto Vianna has run a rare sequence most executives only theorize about. 20 years pricing risk in financial markets, then bootstrapping a health cost data company with zero outside capital, then leading an international M&A deal and staying on as country manager with the mandate to get the company to Series A, stepping away 2 months before the round closed once the path was secure. Now he's the CEO of Impulso Mais, or Impulso Plus, a human performance platform he didn't found, but was brought in to build from zero during its pre-operational phase. Most guests have done one or two of these chapters. Roberto has done 4 in sequence and can speak to the seams between them. So the controversial question for you, the controversial opening question is, did the M&A actually solve the problem it was supposed to solve, or did it just move the problem onto the cap table?
Well, that's a great one to start, right? Thank you very much for the question. It's actually solved one problem for sure, but create many others. I think this is usually how the M&As are. So, of course, for the stage that we were at that time, we were facing a scaling problem. So this was exactly the M&A allowed us to do. It helped us unlock scale, expanded capabilities, augment strategic reach. But of course, many other problems came up, because complexity never disappears, it just changes. So imagine that you have a 25, 30 people company and bootstrapping when you have a kind of a time enough to organize processes and organize the team and culture and logic. And sometimes and suddenly everything changes and speed changes as well. So you gain scale, but of course you lose this time in the sense that you don't have enough time as you used to have before to organize everything. So what I felt at that time, and maybe it's the biggest problem that I had to get used to it and took me some time, is that everything that I stopped to organize something, it was invalid because we were growing fast and new people were arriving, new teams are being built, and the process that you just did last week is not working anymore. So this is just one kind of a problem, but I think this is usually how M&As go. It's very difficult to avoid that.
Thank you. Yesterday, I found I was just screening. I was scrolling my phone, and somehow this interview from a guy who was talking to Travis Kalanick. Did you see the post I shared? Travis, the founder of Uber. So there's M&As. There's a bunch of, let's call it, tools for a company to make more money, raise money, and he was talking about the role of VCs for a startup, right? And this is a guy that ran a Uber. It's like a billion-dollar company. But he said that one of the hardest things for an entrepreneur is to find an actual good VC, a VC that is not going to what was the word he used? It wasn't bother, but really to
Kind of loyal to the project.
yeah, or disturb the entrepreneur, because he was saying that
often
VCs are really good at checking in what you're doing every quarter, but they're not the chess players. They're not there doing the actual match. So he compared chess match, the entrepreneurs as these guys or gals, whatever, who are playing a very intense match 60 to 80 hours a week. And so they're really, really good, and they're 3 steps ahead, and they're making decisions every single day. And then a VC comes in and says, okay, why you're taking this decision? So if a VC doesn't do that, it's already good enough. And of course, there are other complexities, but that's from the perspective of someone raising capital. Anthony has been there, right? Anthony, we talked about it. But I think in the M&A process, it's kind of similar, like, because I think one thing that you touched lightly, and then it's up to you whether you want to share it today or not, but culture, and everything that comes together when you're doing an M&A, like the culture of the other companies, everything that is involved. So I like to go a little deeper in that, in those things, because we tend to look at the money and say, hey, this is going to be great, it's going to scale, or it's going to create opportunities. But there's so many other things that are more complex, right? So perhaps if we could go a little deeper into those aspects, I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think you are very much right, and I like the word that you used, disturb. I don't know if it was occasional or or it was exactly the word that founder used on the French that you said. But I think it's more or less like that. I think one of the biggest mistakes is when you just look at the money, because the money, of course, it solves many of the short-term problems, but it may create the big long-term ones. And I think the way that you align with the VC, especially the strategy after you sign the paper, is key for success in the long term, in the long run. And I think this is what is basically, I see many entrepreneurs and founders getting to this trap, meaning that they are very keen for the money because it's, of course, unlock many of the avenues that you are stuck into. But this kind of conversation and this kind of transparency, let's put this way, on how exactly things will go after you sign the paper, what are the common objectives, what you're going to look for. And especially, the side of the entrepreneur to trying to understand what's exactly behind that VC and why are they willing to invest their money on the company. Because sometimes what may happen is that you're just another company on that spreadsheet, and you've been seen and measured like many other industries, and no business are different from each other. And sometimes you cannot compare them into the spreadsheet. And the founders, they got into that point because of one reason, of one purpose, and especially one view. And you cannot change that because of your money capacity. So when those things are aligned, I think this is a great strategy and a great success. But sometimes in the middle of the confusion, this strategy and this alignment, they stay in second place, which is usually a big mistake.
Yeah,
Anthony, would you like to chip in?
Yeah, I think just to touch on what Roberto said, I think when we were talking about VC, fundraising, mergers and acquisitions, anything like that, sometimes what gets overlooked is the founder's ego. Why are they doing this? There's, especially in VC, VC running, you see it on the news all the time. we've raised a 20 million, 100 million, we've done this, we're amazing. We're doing a merger and acquisition, and it's ego. Oh yeah, we're the big guys, we've bought someone. But what's the real reason for that? Like, VC money is really useful if you need it for certain reasons and you need it to grow. If you cannot get distracted by the VC, if your acquisition, like, you know, I've been involved with companies that have mergers and acquisitions, and what's the reason for it? Sometimes we want to get into a new market, we want to do this. Sometimes it's a bit of an ego thing, and it's a massive distraction for the founding team. Like, the founding team, the founders, the management need to manage the business. They need to run the business without this shiny thing that is cool. It's ego driven. So raising VC can be good, mergers and acquisitions can be good, but for the right reasons. You know, I've mergers and acquisition, I've seen 2 companies merge. Well, one company got bought, and probably about within 5 years' time, the whole team of the people that they bought literally gone out. They've left. They've been pushed out. They've been made to feel uncomfortable. They were uncomfortable. They didn't want to join that company. So really, what was the purpose in that merger, you know, or the acquisition, really? What was the reason for it? So it's there's too much distraction sometimes in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with you, Anthony, and this is something that I see a lot, you know, with entrepreneurs and the founders that I have contact with. You know, there is sometimes that feeling that if you're not raising funds, you're not on that group that's going to be successful. So that will succeed, which is a big mistake. It has to be aligned with your strategy. You know, I always see the founder as one of the biggest assets of any company. You know, there is one specific reason for the founder to have brought, you know, that business until that point. You know, it has to be considered and it has to be aligned. Whenever a VC comes up, you know, and come aboard, you know, the strategy going forward must be aligned. And that's it. I totally agree with you.
What was the moment like for you that the culture collided, Roberto? Because you guys, the story was so amazing when you shared the first time. You had this job, you were working, and then I think your business partner was you guys were running this on the side, and at some point you said, okay, I have to, you know, I can leave my formal job and join the company. So you guys built this from without investment, right? And then you joined this. There was this decision to go for an M&A. But I like to, you know, to hear from you where things went not so great. Let's put it this way. Where were you colliding? You know,
after the M&A, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Excuse me?
to complement that question, I'm also curious in which point, like, you came with that idea, okay, I'm leaving the financial market to start in healthcare,
Okay.
which is, of course, something very different than...
Yeah. No, I'm going to answer
a partnership and so forth, but then you decided to start with your own investment. So why not to find a partner a bit more specialized in healthcare? How you had this decision?
No, thank you for the question. I'm gonna tell you guys that. No, for instance, I'm an engineer, so I never worked as an engineer. I jumped into the financial market very soon. I really found myself. I was completely, you know, happy on that space. I started to work on treasury, doing structured derivatives, FX sales, interest rates, and during some time, you know, my job was to trying to understand risk exposures of big corporations here in Brazil and multinational companies. That Citibank, the bank that I used to work for more than 13 years. they had relationship with, the big risks they were running, but they didn't know they were running. So my job was that look at the balance sheet, trying to understand exposures and try to create that, like strategic structure, finance solution so they could hedge this kind of exposure. Until one day that I was reading the balance sheet and I saw one big line of a big corporation here calling healthcare cost. And I was very surprised that the costs were increasing like 5 times the regular inflation in Brazil. And I said, huge. This company is looking that for the cost perspective, but for me, this is a risk exposure. This is the biggest cost after salaries in this company. It's like hundreds and millions of reais every year. So this is for me a risk exposure. So I hedge everything that is possible. So I'm going to the market and I'm going to hedge healthcare. And then I figured out that there wasn't any hedge for healthcare here in Brazil. Then I said, okay, no problem, because we have the London branch, the USA branch, the Tokyo branch, we always find a solution for that. I do things much more structured than just healthcare. So I'm going to find a hedge solution for that. And I didn't find. And I said, huge, maybe this is a problem that every company in Brazil are running and we don't know. And then I went to study this market a little bit and I figured out that, yes, I was right. It was a big cost and big burden for every company in Brazil and also in the world. It was a line of expense that were growing 3 to 5 times inflation every year, year after year. And then I realized, like 15 years from today, which is nowadays, the companies probably won't have the power enough to give a good healthcare plan and a healthcare, support for their employees because it's unsustainable. And then, together with some friends, we started to get deep on this because I was very quiet about it. And then I figured out that in Brazil, there is a paper of a broker who has to intermediate, the relationship between the corporates and the insurance companies, in the sense that the broker has to be specialized in healthcare because the company, it's something very technical and the company probably won't have all the information to deal directly with insurance providers. So they have to do through a broker. And then I said, oh yes, there is someone protecting the company, until I realized that the broker, they received a portion of whatever the company pays. And I said, oh my God, it cannot be possible, because so if the company pays more, the broker makes more money. So no, it cannot be right, So we founded a company based on this principle, and much more trying to challenge the market and trying to do things right in our way of view things. Then we're gonna build a great company and we're gonna become a unicorn and we're gonna do our lives based on that. I was very quiet about it, and I think I have to mention here and be very clear that this story is not normal, because I had the privilege to find 2 great partners that had side jobs. And we managed to arrange our time, to do that in the sidelines, because we were receiving our salaries in our job. So we used to work at night, we were to work on weekends, and we didn't have any expectations of extracting value from the company in the short term. So we were really wanted to challenge the market and say, okay, this cannot be right. There is another way to show transparency, to show data, and especially to align the mindset with the company, saying, no, I won't allow you to pay more if I make more money. Let's try to inverse that. How can I make more money if you pay less? And we started to do something like that. Then we became a broker because we had to, and then we started to manage the companies. And making a long story short here, we did that for 7 years, but I think we were very much in line of what the market was looking for. So we were gaining clients slowly, very slowly, and then intermediate clients, and then we started to gain big clients, and then we realized that the clients weren't leaving us. Our churn was really, really very below, market average. And then we realized that we were going the right track. Until one beautiful day that I was on Treasury, and I don't know how used you are with that, but our phones were all recorded because we had inside information. We are dealing, for the biggest companies in the world. So we had really very strategic information. So I went to the restroom, to the bathroom with my phone, secretly, because I wanted to know from my partners how was a meeting on that morning for the material I had prepared in the last night. And I said, oh my God, my body is here, but my soul is outside. And the weird thing was that, I was extremely happy being an executive. I am not this kind of entrepreneur that, say, no, I will never be an executive in my life again because it sucks, because I have a lot of bureaucracy, where I usually I hear from the entrepreneurs that I speak to. I was very happy. It was a great, part of my life. I just have to thank, Citibank and everything that they teach me. But anyway, on that day, something changed inside of me. And the company was like 7 years old. We had recurring revenue. We had clients. We didn't have churn. We had proven our thesis. We were growing very slowly as the bootstrap, very conservative. We were growing like 25 to 30% a year. We had positive net profit, which is not very common for a startup. We were slowly distributing money for the founders, very little piece of money, but we were. And on that day, I had the courage. It was one of the biggest and the hardest decisions of my life. And I took like 7 to 8 months after that phone day to take the decision. I did professional coaching about that. I didn't sleep for many nights because I was living a 20-year career that I was very happy with, lots of benefits. I was a director of a big multinational and everything that you probably know about. And then I was going to a company that on that year, the total revenues of the company was smaller than my total comp at the Citibank on that year. So it was a tough decision. I had 1-year-old daughter, and my wife was always by my side on that, saying, follow your dreams. If you have something inside of you, this is maybe your last opportunity. I had like 36 to 37 years old. If I hadn't taken that decision on that day, probably I would be at Citi until today. I'm positive about that. But anyway, that was the big day, and then I took the decision. I have to give a parenthesis here for a very personal thing, but I think it's going to explain more or less what I passed through. But on that day, I arrived at night at home, and I asked my wife. She calls Camila and said, Camila, I put my hands on her shoulder and said, today was the day. Are you ready for that? And then she looked at my eyes and said, I'm pregnant. On the very same day. It was my second boy coming in the day that I left a 20-year career and lots of benefits to go to my company. I started to cry because I was very emotional about it. She started to cry and she said, are we going to be okay? And I said, of course, I'm just emotional. And I didn't sleep at that night. And then my entrepreneur journey started, and I think it pushed me. By my little boy, he just pushed me, and saying, you cannot look behind anymore. Now we have to look forward. And that's it. So it was a lot of passion. We started the company with passion. We wanted to challenge the market. We wanted to prove our theory. We weren't expecting to extract value and to become big and good, but things started to happen in a very natural way. And on that year, my partners, they jumped into the company. And then the three of us together, 24-hour a day, and it was really almost 24-hour a day. And then we started to scale the company in a very conservative way. And so this is the story of, why did I take this decision, and why from financial market to healthcare. I always saw healthcare as a financial exposure. I always saw healthcare as something that the companies must hedge because it's a huge expense. I always tried to build a broker consulting firm that was more than a consulting firm than a regular broker. I always tried to use risk management and everything that I learned in the financial market in order to provide the companies a different view on something that was very operational. This was the theory behind. This it was our thesis, and also I think we created a great name here in the market. And again, you're going to see me speaking that many times. We were very conservative. Just for you guys to have an idea on that bootstrap moment, we were living on our recurring revenue. I realized that our lifetime value was gold for our business because our portfolio even if we were doing readjustments much below market average, we were doing like 2.5, 3 times inflation. So our costs were, increasing at inflation, and our portfolio was increasing 2, 3 times that. So we realized that if you do not lose any company, we're gonna make money just without, attracting new companies. So we always focus very much, on doing a great service, on proof that we had the right mindset, and being aligned with the customer. Until one day, after 5 years, unfortunately, we passed through pandemic in a reasonable way, and we kept growing. And finally, between 2021 and 2022, after 5 years of that decision, we realized, and I realized that as the founder, that we had reached the top, in the sense that I cannot imagine we doubling the company, with the same structure that we have right now. And maybe this was one of my biggest mistakes, because I got so focused on making the business, happen, that I didn't, take the right time to, think about succession, to forming a great intermediate team, and trying to find new revenue streams in order to scale in the same mechanism that we used to have. So we found like M&As could be a possibility, and also VCs could be a possibility. And also on that time, the big broker house here in Brazil, they wanted to acquire us, because we really, had put in something different in the streets, and we were taking clients from them. But we said, like, how can I do an M&A with someone that we think exactly the opposite? Probably we're going to have like a conflict, because it's not going to happen. I'm going to, tell to my customers that I'm going to do everything that I ever said that I wouldn't do it. So it didn't make any sense. The paycheck, also it wasn't, something that would change our lives. But then we found this international health tech company that was very deep in product and AI, machine learning. They had proven a very nice theory about it. They had a product, had launched a product. And then we decided to do the M&A, looking for a way to unlock scalability, to, use product knowledge and technology in order to scale without losing everything that we have created before. So this was the avenue that we chosen, but it was a weird thing, because imagine that I had a bootstrap company with net profits growing 20 to 30% every year, very conservative, living in the recurring revenue, everything, like beautiful, right? And then we merged with a 100% VC-backed company with zero revenue, zero clients, funded by VC, very technological, and with a level of the team also very different from the profile of the team that you used to have. So it was a weird combination. So during some time, I couldn't explain ourselves, because we joined like a cash, flow company with a cash burn one, and then the VCs came, then we formed the board, and then everything changed, And then we have, of course, as I explained in the first question, the M&A solved many problems, but also they have created many others. So I'm not sure. I'm jumping to other questions here, and if I answer you exactly, Luana and Carlos, but this is the first part of the story.
I really like that story, but
Great.
I'll do something unusual. And please ask your questions, because then we can break it into the second part of the story, where he's a CEO and an advisor today. But I think that part of the story is so rich, Roberto, so amazing. So I'll let you guys ask your questions if you like to. It's a little different. Typically, we have the sessions by the end of the talk, like the 30 minutes that we have left. But anyone, if you like to raise your hand, if you have questions about this journey, I think it's cool.
Yeah, I got a question about the bootstrapping of your business, which I'm a big fan of. but practically it's not always possible for many people. Sometimes the business dictates that you do need to go full time. Sometimes, it just needs must. Do you regret not taking on some funding at the beginning, maybe?
Great question, Anthony. I don't. You know why? Because if we had taken the money before, I don't think we would be able to reach the point that we've reached because we needed time. We tried to do, we were in a very consultative selling business. We were trying to prove something so different than the market was doing from scratch. I can tell you here, we invested $2,000 in the company from our pockets, and we never invested any other money. We needed time. I don't know if we could be able to find a VC fund or any angel investor that would allow us to have the time that we needed to prove that. This is point number one. And the point number two is also the time of our career. Whenever we decided to challenge the market, as I like to say, and build the company, I never expected in my life that I would build a company one day. I was extremely happy and successful in my executive career. So the first thing that I said to my partners was, I won't leave city by any chance. So are you okay with that? I would work on the sidelines. I was single. I didn't have a family. I could work at nights, on weekends. For me, it was okay. And my partners were two of my best friends. So for me, during some time, I gotta tell you, Anthony, I don't know if it was so cool that we were building a company or so cool that two of my best friends were coming to my house at night and we were having beer together and, like building something together. So it was a weird story. So we had the privilege to live that. I know that it's not a common story, and I know how a VC will behave if we put that in the table at that time. So something that was key for us is that we understood ourselves. We understood the moment of life and of our careers. We wanted to, not give up on our careers on that time because it would have put in a lot of pressure on extracting value in the company in the short term. And it was a lucky decision because then we had the time enough, to prove in the theory slowly, but in a very good way.
Brilliant story.
Yeah, but I totally agree with you. There are some kind of industries and businesses that unfortunately cannot afford time, especially nowadays, right? When you think about AI and when you think about everything that is going on, it's very difficult, to buy time in some certain industries. So VC and external funding, it may be the solution for that, and we have to live with that. My only point on this is that things have to be aligned. The founder must be aligned on whatever are going to be the metrics, on whatever is the plan, on whatever is the goal of this fund provider right after we sign the paper. And this is something that, it's not always that I see when I talk and I mentor founders and entrepreneurs right after they did that. Many of them still get surprised. And this is my big question mark. Why? Because probably the check was beautiful, the newspaper news, as you say, the ego was unbelievable. I was in the front page, mom is happy, like this is my boy. But whatever happened, later, it's difficult to manage. So this is for me the most important thing.
Anyone would like to ask questions, to have something to say? No?
Me.
Yeah. Go ahead. Thank you.
Well, my question, is still being more about that chapter of your life. In bureaucracy in big companies, it's very something, especially multinationals and banks, especially as you worked. We struggle a lot with that. But then you became an entrepreneur, and at the very beginning, it was a smaller team, your partners were your friends, and so on. And of course, the perspective of the governance probably changed, But are there things you once considered bureaucratic that you later understood that was just to protect the business? And how was later on this integration with the new company, super automatic, super like much more informatic and AI and so forth. It's a breakdown. It's a very different culture. I passed it for something recent, completely different cultures needed to be together, and it was like very, very challenging. So how you see that this question of governance, since we are talking about governance today?
Yes, great question. Thank you so much. Also, well, I'm maybe not sure the right person to say, because again, I was privileged to work in an environment where governance was key for 20 years. I never suffered with bureaucracy at the bank, to be very honest with you. And I know many of my colleagues, they were like, at Citi, it's too big to fail, in the sense that, you have to go to the restroom, so fill out this paper and, take someone else. And I mean, this was the joke at that time, but I never suffered with that. Actually, when I used to talk with our managers and the head of treasury, they always told me, they always used to tell me that, what, maybe you are not the most technical person that we have here, but somehow you manage bureaucracy in the best way. And I always saw governance as a way to improve decision making instead of only a burden in the process. And this is something that also I brought to Healthco when you built it. I can tell you that we used to have reports, financial reports, and committees that were not common for a startup, but it was the way I learned how to work. I mean, I grew in this environment for 20 years, so this was the way that I knew how to do stuff. So even when we came to the company, my partners were very open to that. And we always, of course, measuring the balance in knowing that we were in a startup and not in a bank. But I always gave so much attention to governance in the sense that if we have great data, if we have great policies, if we are organized, it will actually save us time in the long run instead of taking us time in the short term. I think the balance is positive in the long term. I always believe that. So I always see governments in the way of improving decision making, trying to avoid us to make, like bad decisions will take you more time to fix later. And I didn't suffer from the transition. Of course, we had a much more agile company, a smaller one, but I was always concerned about having the right processes. And then having the link, Luana, when we did the M&A, it was something that I had to, work on myself, because I didn't have the same time as the bootstrapping period to do that. When you grow like a clock, like 25% per annum, and you take 3 new big customers, and you can adapt the team, and you hire someone, and then you reorganize the process. After the M&A, we were in a high growth environment. Whenever you do that, things does not work anymore, because there are 30 new clients coming in, and then a department the last week, it didn't exist, and now we were building. So you just scratch the papers and try, start all over again. So I suffered a little bit with that until I got used to it. But making the answer short here, I always saw governance as, like a link to take better decisions, to save you time. Of course, everything in excess is not good, but I don't see that as a bureaucracy. I see on the other hand.
Nice.
Thank you. Very well explained.
Thank you. And if we talk about the M&A, and then a bunch of things happened there, you went through a soul searching period. Let's talk about that until we get to you becoming a CEO again, and being an advisor, board leader today. So if you could talk about that period, what changed? That process. Sure. When you went through the M&A.
Yeah, I think it's important to to say, I heard, I don't know if I'm mistaken, but Anthony, it's a serious entrepreneur. Maybe you understand what I'm talking here. Imagine that I built something. I was good understanding healthcare in Brazil. I was good doing that business. I understood the business from another perspective. But then I realized I was in a table with sharks discussing an M&A contract of that size that I never did in my life before. And this is a point here that I also, try to coach entrepreneurs to be very careful, because it's a very challenging situation. You are just dealing with someone that did that 150 times more than you. It's your first time doing that. You have to manage the company. You have to keep, doing the good numbers so the M&A are still on board. You hire lawyers. Probably you don't have money enough to hire the same level of lawyers that they have in the other side of the table. You are talking from a M&A contract in another jurisdiction with rules that you never thought get to know before. So this was a very challenging moment for me, and I gotta tell you, I was scared. I would never forget the day that I was at the Uber with one of my partners, which is to today my best friend, that we were sat that it was supposed to be the happiest day of our life. The contract was ready. We were going to the lawyer's office, to open a champagne and to sign the papers into a ceremony with the VCs and, the founder of the company that we merged. And I remember that we got stuck in the traffic for 40 minutes and we didn't talk to each other a single word. We were looking at the window in the back seat. It was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Our baby, our company. We knew that we had the instinct that we were doing, something for the good sake of the company. But I think I was very afraid. And this was a special part of the M&A that I always, share with everyone that come here to talk to me, to pay attention, get great advisors. In lawyers and M&A, you should never, try to save money. It's the great investment that you can do for yourself and for your business. We were fortunate that we got very good counselors that helped us. But this is not something that I always see, and not because the other side and the counterparty, they are bad guys. No, they are just experts on doing that. No, that's one thing. And right after the M&A, it was like a feeling that we were just entering into a new journey. That sentiment of I'm afraid, just passed after we opened the champagne. We were very happy about that. And then we were planning how to integrate two very different companies with very different cultures. Imagine that I was like a consulting broker firm that was trying to challenge the market with one profile of team, 35 people. And then we merged with another company of 35 people, very tech intensive, just devs and data scientists and AI brains, and very different profiles. So our concern in the first 100 days were how could we preserve the culture, and how could we preserve the culture and not shocking anyone here. So we were very careful on integrating the company in the first 100 days, and we got very surprised in the positive way, because things were really smooth. And it was one of my biggest mistakes to believe that, everything would be like that after the 100 days, because then after the first 120 days, we said, no, this is a piece of cake. Come on, we don't have any noise. Teams are great. They are doing happy hours together. They love each other. We see them hugging. We are just a great team. And then we said, okay, now let's integrate systems, right? Oh, why not? And then we committed a big mistake, because then we realized that we didn't take, the right time to know each other, to deeply know exactly what was inside of each of the companies. And we just wanted to transform two companies into a new one. instead of doing that smoothly also, as it was the first 120 days, we tried to do that maybe at once, because VCs was like, okay, this is not a party. Come on, guys. It was great that the first 120 days. Okay, beautiful. People are loving each other, but, we have our spreadsheet here and we have to show our KPIs to, whatever the guys that are behind me that put the money here. So let's move forward. And I think whatever we did right in this first 120 days, we didn't do very well in the last part of the first year. We struggled a little bit on integrating the systems. We thought it would be easier than it actually was. For the first time, we were starting to grow because we added technology into the commercial and the sales side. But on the other hand, we were unable to catch up CS and operational in the same speed. So for the first time, after several years, we started to increase churn. And then I started to be in panic, because for me, it was like, for the thesis that I created, churn for us was like gold. It was our, strategic advantage within the market. The market, just for you to have an idea, used to have like 15% churn a year. We used to have 0.7 or something like this. I was the one that, whenever we used to lose a client, I was in the street walking alone, sad, because clients for me were like part of my family. And then whenever you enter into a high growth environment, you are scaling, you're thinking completely different than you used to do before. Things have changed, and I had to change myself in a very fast pace as well. Fortunately, I did that. I cannot tell you that I do not suffer doing that, but I had to do that. But it was a very weird moment that I was realizing that the company was changing, but I was changing as well as a leader. And it was very painful to me personally, to be honest. Sometimes I look at the mirror and say, I'm not recognizing myself. I don't know if my values are changing or if this is really part of the business. And fortunately, I got great personal advisors as well that helped me to settle down a little bit whenever you are an operator. And at that time, I was also in the board, but I was, like full-time committed being an operator of the company. Of course, you were feeling the ground. You're feeling everything that is going on. You're feeling the customer sentiment. You're feeling the team. You're feeling whenever you were breaking something, So it was very weird because we used to have in the bootstrap the company in our hands. We used to know everything. Everything was on track. We were like a small Swiss watch, where everything was working, piece by piece. And suddenly everything started to break, but break in the sense that we were scaling fast. And usually this is what happens. The game had changed. I had prepared myself, but then I realized that I hadn't enough, I guess.
And Roberto, I want to move to the final block and open for questions. And the final block is you went to Harvard to study at OPM, right? OPM is a course. Maybe you can explain. It's for founders, family businesses.
Founders and entrepreneurs, yes.
Founders and entrepreneurs. You came back from Harvard, and that course. So it was kind of like your soul searching period where you. So perhaps you can talk about you left the business, maybe why you decided to leave Harvard, and now you're a board leader. And I'd love the guys and Luana to ask questions as well.
Sure. So what happened is that I stayed after the M&A. I stayed in the company for 3 years, and my biggest goal was to lead and to help, contribute with the company until our Series A, which was a very emblematic moment, or another very emblematic moment of the company. And then in the middle of this path, I started to realize that, I had, I had a baby that was now a grown-up. I knew that the company was moving towards another direction. I had this internal conflict between someone that had bootstrapped the company and now living the VC world. The company was scaling. We were successful in that strategy on scaling the company, but things were not exactly in the way that I think they could be. and this I talk about personal values. It wasn't anything wrong with the strategy of the company, just the way that I think I wanted to manage that business. Then I started to think, with myself, what, I'm getting crazy here. So I need to step off a little bit and trying to see my life and the business from another perspective. And then I heard about OPM, which is called the Owner and President Management. It's a very prestigious course at Harvard Business School. It's a 2-year program where you go there for 3 periods of 1 month. It's an immersion, So I said, that's it. I'm going to step back a little bit, and I'm going to Harvard in the way of, trying to look at my perspective from another angle and try to network and, take another year until I decide what to do. The company was in the right track. And then in the middle of Unit 1 and Unit 2, because the program, you go there for a month and then you come back and then you stay a year back and then you come back for another month and then you stay back for a year and then you go back for the last period of 1 month. And the objective of that is that to enter in the program, you must be a relevant shareholder into a company so you can take decisions. So the objective of that, you go there and we stay there for with other entrepreneurs living in the campus. It's a very intense course, and then you come back and then you try to apply everything that you learn, and then you come back after a year to share how things went, the good things, the bad things, whatever you did, and then you learn, and then you come back again and do that for another period. So between Unit 1 and Unit 2, I met so incredible people. I heard so many incredible stories, and I started, those people and that experience, it helped me see my life from another perspective. And then 2 things happened. The first one was that I understood that maybe that chapter of my life was getting to an end. And I was very curious with myself on trying to do new things because I came back from Unit 1 with many other ideas. It's amazing when you meet to a great group of people, and I realized that I was living in a bubble, like doing healthcare in Brazil in an office 14 hours a day. And sometimes I heard stories that I said, oh my God, the world is wide. And there are so many other things that I can do in my life. I'm reaching, the half of my life. And, what is about the second one? What are you planning to do? And those were the things that personally moved me inside of me. And another second thing that happened, it was unbelievable the way that also Harvard seeds on you, the purpose of, what, you got very, very lucky to sit here. This is a very prestigious course, but unfortunately, it's not everyone that have this opportunity. So now, how are you going to come back and contribute to others, in order to give to society something that you got? And it really touched me. I never thought it would in that way. And I was very, reflexive in the sense of, what, I want to help entrepreneurs because I passed through a lot of things, and I know that I can contribute to them with them. I can be an advisor. I can sit near them. I feared exactly what they fear. I know that you guys are seeing all the scars of being an entrepreneur, especially in Brazil. I can allow my colleagues and I can help them, and support them in the best way I could do. And it became a purpose to me. And that's why, I moved to the advisor into the board, as a philosophy, as a purpose. But getting back to the M&A story, whenever I came back from Unit 1, I almost decided with myself that it was like, I'm going to lead this company, to the Series A, and then this is going to be the last chapter of this book for me. It was exactly what happened. Between Unit 1 and Unit 2, I took the decision. Whenever I came back from Unit 2, I announced the board, and we did something, very elegant. Something very, careful, the transition. And 2 months before the Series A was signed, it was very well, negotiated already. And then I moved, and the company took another direction. They took the funding. I'm still a minority shareholder of the company, and they got into another path. And on the same time, I took a small sabbatic period. The family asked, at least once, go see your son, playing soccer at school, right? And I did that. And I realized, how was that important to me. And I started to dedicate my time to help other entrepreneurs. And I was started to be invited to join boards and advisories. And this is what I'm doing right now from part of my time. And then I said, you know what, I'm going to relax at least for a year and a half. And then something really weird happened to me. I realized with myself after 3 to 4 months staying in my house that, I love the tactic side of the business. I love to be in the ground. I have so much energy, to be, I love to be in front of the client. I love to feel the noise. I love to organize stuff, so this is part of who I am. So whenever I was invited to be the CEO, like a late co-founder here on Impulso Plus, it really, it was very interesting because it was something that I was missing inside of me. My wife got a little mad because she was happy to have daddy at home, but it's something that makes my life make sense. Let's put it this way. And just one last thing to open for questions. I realized also something very interesting, that being on the tactical side always makes me be a better advisor. And being at boards and advisor is also contributing to make me be a better CEO. Because one thing that I struggle in my story was being an operator 101% of my time. You are always seeing next day and next week. Probably you were seeing next month. And whenever you are at the board, you have to, like raise your hand, raise your head and looking forward. And I think this balance, of understanding how to look forward and understand how to look next Monday, is a great balance, that happened to me naturally, that if I knew it before, probably I would have done that while I was an operator like 10 years ago, because it really complemented who I am.
Amazing, Roberto. I'm a fan. So please, if you have questions, we have just a few more minutes. He has a. Are we on time, Roberto? Are we good?
Yes, of course. I have another 20 minutes.
Yeah, we have a few more minutes. Yeah, go ahead, Hawan.
Hello, Roberto. Nice to meet you. Congratulations on your career. It's really, really interesting. I know how hard it is to be an entrepreneur in Brazil. And the part that I'm most curious about in your story is because I've always been a founder. So since my 18, I've never been an executive or an employee like we have in Brazil, carteira de trabalho. I have no idea where you have one of those. So what I would like to hear from you is, what were the key learnings or aspects that you learned from the executive world that helped you being an entrepreneur, help you make this transition in your career, maybe some experience that you had. City is a really huge company, so I'm pretty sure that you have learned a lot there.
Well, of course. Thank you for the question, Hawan, and very nice to meet you. Well, I'm going to answer you that, but before I'm going to tell you what I used to say to many people is that all entrepreneurs, they should have been an executive before getting into entrepreneurship, and otherwise it's true. All executives, they have to become entrepreneurs to understand what is real life and not in the air-conditioned bubble, before sitting there on that beautiful office and start complaining about everything, This is one thing complements the other. So I answer about one way, but answering about the executive world, I think what I've learned and helped me a lot is that processes are not bullshit. They are relevant and they saves you time at the end of the day. Organization is key. I know that startups, it's crazy. This is how it is. But if you try to organize things in the best possible way, things get smoother. Governance was something that one asked me, that I truly believe since the beginning. Since month one, without almost no revenues, we had a financial report. We have a financial committee. This was something that helped us a lot to, have the right culture of everything that we did later. So many things that usually executives complain in the executive world is something that helps us a lot being entrepreneurs. So don't take like processes, culture, and also for me, I want to be very honest with you. I was in a multinational company with a very strong culture, very strong culture. So I understood that culture are not nice shirts, nice slogans, and nice phrases on the wall. This is something that I actually do not believe very much. I understand what is real culture. Culture starts from the leader. Culture is every day, every minute, in every decision. It's not a rule of thumb. It's not a manual that you say, this is my culture. Yeah, you can have written because you have to, but culture is how you perform every day, how you talk to your people, how you take decisions, inside of a room, alone, or in front of your entire team. So these were the kind of things that I learned in the executive life that helped me a lot being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, great answer. I totally agree with the first part that you said that entrepreneurs should have been an executive before. Unfortunately, I didn't took that path, and I know well how hard it was because of that. Definitely, after like 10 years of being an entrepreneur, I decided to do a master degree because I said there are a lot of things that I'm missing, that I'm lacking. The company is doing well, okay, but I know that I did lack some tools that I should have learned if I had been an executive before found the company. So I totally agree with your advice. It's not the easy path when you decide to go full-time entrepreneur when you are I started I was 18, so it's so young. I should be bringing coffee to executives, and I was doing a lot of different stuff than that. So yeah, great answer. Thank you for sharing your experience.
No, actually, you are a hero, man. And time is never enough. You have time to do, whatever you have to. You are studying. You have great advisors that can help you with that. You don't need to have a formal board to have like a personal or a professional advisor, that can help you, understand the things from another perspective. The big issue here is your willingness to understand that. Sometimes entrepreneur they want to get blind in the sense of I'm doing the right things. This is how it is. But if you are open to understand that you can improve every day, this is the greatest part.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Roberto.
I have a question, Roberto. What an amazing, fascinating story. Well done. Thank you for sharing that with us in such a wonderful way. It was a captivating story. Your approach to share so much, I'm sure actually is quite relatable among lots of entrepreneurs. Yeah, like when you mentioned going home and hearing from your wife the new news. I remember my pivot day was on the second birthday of my daughter, going home and saying, "Oh, something's about to change a lot today," And I was, I look back at my corporate career and I tried to exit really early on. Like in my mind, I always knew where I was going. I bought my domain name 20 years during, early on and everything. But based on what you guys were saying, it was so valuable to me, Juan, the network, the structure. I worked at companies like Microsoft, Oracle, big bids, small bids, a partner ecosystem. And when I look back, actually, if I stayed 2 more years on, I would have learned about huge transformation that was happening in the market and strengthened me. Whereas even though I had that whole career, had the network, I transitioned just as the world was transforming again. So I had to figure out a lot of it myself, no many advisors, anything. So my question was, in that journey, how much was it motivated by the financial outcome? Because yours is unique, because you have you've got trusted friends with you. You're going a longer journey. But from a personal perspective, how much importance would you put on that? Hey, I got the financial goal. We need to keep the numbers, and I very much love the hey. If I lost one customer, because it's such an important part. But actually, from a personal perspective, how much were you driven by the financial side, and how much were you driven by hey, I know what the target is, regardless of the outcome. I need to hit that target type of balance.
Great. Thank you for the question, Kamal. I think I'm not sure I can tell you exactly, when I pivoted that. For sure, I can guarantee you that we started the business with not that ambition, with any financial ambition, as I said. But for sure, whenever we did the M&A, we had a financial ambition. So things changed in the middle of the way. I think for me, when it really pivoted, it was when I left Citi. Because I had, my cash cow had gone, and now I had to extract some value from the company. So it started to become one of the priorities in the sense that we will always preserve the business, but now the financial outcome is something relevant to our personal lives. And we were grown up, so we weren't like 26-year-old boys, after graduation. Now we had our families, and then it started to become serious. We decided to do that for a living. It was different. In the first, half of the company, it was like a company. We were very proud that we were building a company, but we had our, what we did for a living was, another thing. And then that was a big transformation. And I felt the pressure, Kawal. I felt the pressure. I remember the first day that, where is my salary? I don't have a salary anymore. And then I organize myself, as a good engineer. I do 37 Excel scenarios. Of course, none of them happen. It's impossible to predict. But then I learned slowly how to deal with that. But of course, I suffered. I felt the pressure, I suffered. I was very lucky that the company also responded very well to the 3 founders, together. So things started to happen faster than what I was imagining. So it was good, but in the very beginning, it was very difficult for me to manage that. After 20 years doing in one way, it was difficult. But then it became an ambition, and then it became one of our top priorities. Then we wanted to, now that we are here dedicating our time, we left our careers. Now we're going to boost this company. Financial is one of our priorities. We're going to maintain the pace. We're going to keep our theory, which is untouchable. It's our, queen of gold. But then we started to look for financial outcomes in a different way.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Carlos had to leave us, but anyone has a final question for Roberto?
I've got a kind of, I'm trying not to hog too much of your time, but your process and kind of diligence kind of expertise from the corporate world. I'm a big fan of process. Like, a small company needs process, but I think there could be potentially an overburden on process when it's a small company, especially when it's fast moving, it's growing quick. How do you manage that with the companies you advise? Obviously, you probably want to implement some process and some rules and some structure, but not overcomplicate it.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And being very honest with you, I think that sometimes also overreacted on the process. Let's put it this way, in the sense that I used to, be very annoyed by processes more than I had to. depending on the stage of the company. So answering your questions, I think what I come to the table, what I bring to the table, is that of course every company, they have to understand the stage that they are. But I always try to reinforce that if you are successful on balancing the right time to dedicate to at least the minimum process that you can have in order to deliver a great service, to attain customer expectations, and to do not be struggling whenever the things are scaling and you get lost in the middle of the way. I think I always try to in this sense, put on the table that there is a right balance. I maybe not the one that can tell for every company which the balance is. The only thing that I'm sure that you cannot work as a startup as a bank does. But on the other hand, also, I do not believe that you just can give up on processes because, we are growing, we are a startup. This is kind of bullshit, bureaucracy, and we have to grow. And whenever we do the famous fake it until you make it, but in the sense of, internally, let's do whatever we have to do because we have to focus just on sales. Sales is cash is king. We have to perform, and then we see how things go. I do not trust very well on that way of doing things. But of course, you have to balance depending on the industry, depending on the team that you have, depending on the stage that you are, and depending on the key priorities that you have in front of you. But for me, it's always a matter of balance.
I agree. And thank you for your time. I'll stop asking questions now.
No, thank you very much for the question, Anthony.
Well, so let's be respectful with your time, and we'll be right on time. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Roberto, Anthony, Luana, and everyone that's here. So Roberto, please let us know where people can find you, and where can people know more about also Impulse Plus.
Of course, Paul. Thank you so much for the great conversation. I love to be here. It's a pleasure, to be in the group. From now on, you're going to see me more, hopefully, in these sessions. So thank you very much for Carlos and for Gustavo to have invited me to join. It was amazing for me. Please count on me on whatever you need. You can find me at LinkedIn, Roberto Vianna with double N. And also, I'm in the group, so please feel free to reach me out. Whatever I can help, please count on me.
Great. Thank you, everyone. So bye-bye. See you next Thursday with another expert session. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.